Hello, hello. I am so humbled and excited to be here with my three amazing guests. We're going to be talking about MCP today, but I want to just introduce everyone before we get into that. Angie Jones, we have here the VP of Engineering and AI Tools and Enablement over at Block. We've got the awesome Kent C. Dodds, software engineering educator. What doesn't Ken do? Backflipping on snowboards at Kent C. Dodds Tech. And then my wonderful friend and text buddy, Amanda Martin, Senior Developer Advocate over at Apollo GraphQL. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the stage. It's great to have you here. We're going to be talking about MCP and the future of it going into 2026. We've seen quite the rise in content and tooling around MCP this year. I want to kind of just go over some of the things that we've seen and then how developers can approach MCP going into 2026. I feel like it's going to be a really big year. With all of that being said, I just said a lot. I'm going to take a breath here. Starting with Amanda, can you each give us your favorite or simple analogy that helps maybe developers grasp exactly what MCP is fundamentally?
So I know you had put you have mentioned the USB-C of AI, I think in some of the posts about this, which is the one you hear the most. So I was trying to think of like a different one. You could compare it like loosely to NPM in that like packageable, shareable tools. That analogy starts to break down a little. Like if you consider it more deeply, it's not packages, it's not a registry, but I feel like that's another kind of easy thing to wrap your mind around. Like it's not loose code, it's packaged and shareable. And that makes it really powerful.
I love that. Angie, go ahead.
I'm going to use one woman on my team. Her name is Ebony Lewis. And I thought she did a brilliant analogy for it at a conference talk once time. But she said it's like a universal remote control. So I like the thought of that, being able to essentially connect to any sort of like data or application. No matter what agent or client you're using, MCP allows for that, right? And so I think that's like a really big superpower of it, is that I can use like the same applications in any agent without doing any sort of real integration work there. It just kind of just works, right? Because they all speak the same protocol.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think MCP is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And you can kind of see that in the way that people talk about it or argue about it online. People can be like, no, of course you wouldn't use it. Like, this doesn't make sense to have this feature. Like, why do you care about code mode? Or like, all of these different things that we're talking about, because we all have different use cases for MCP. But as far as I'm concerned, at a fundamental level, MCP is just a mechanism for getting an agent to talk to an external service in a generic or a standardized way, so that those agents can actually invest time in building to that standard, and then they can talk to anybody else who builds to that standard. And so I actually think about it a lot like the way the web works, and HTTP and HTML and CSS. We've got these standards, and anybody who writes to the standard on both sides, the person who's consuming those things, the browser builders, and the people who are building those things, which is most of us, the website builders. Anyway, I would see MCP kind of being very analogous to sort of browser website kind of idea.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I love it. The next question, we'll start off with Kent. From a developer experience perspective, what's the single most exciting thing you've seen or concept that maybe you've thought about that is now possible thanks to MCP?
I try to stay as grounded as possible, and like there's a lot of hype around MCP, and I think that there's good reason for that, but maybe too much hype in some areas or for some people and not enough for others. I think that MCP can be very foundationally changing. And the thing I always like to talk about is Jarvis from Iron Man, where Iron Man just like says, Jarvis, do this whatever thing, and Jarvis can just do that. Like if we were to take the technology that we have in the world and like what can get us to that level, MCP, it will be central to that. There are many other things that need to be done before we can have an actual Jarvis. Maybe an Infinity Stone or two would help, but I think actually getting closer to an AI assistant that can not just answer questions, but actually answer contextually relevant questions with the latest information and even private personal information, as well as make changes in the world, perform some kind of mutation. MCP is what enables that. And there's a lot more that I could say about that, but I should probably stop talking.
No, that was great. Anything you want to add to that, Angie? Same question to you.
I got 66 MCP servers. And so I live this life, you know what I mean? So I can tell you like real use cases at my company. So one is where we took 3 MCP servers, Linear, Jira, and GitHub. And now on Linear or Jira, so we use both of these as issue trackers. Some teams prefer this one, some teams prefer that, whatever. So in these issue trackers, you have your sprint work with your product managers and, you know, QA, and everybody's in here, and we have all this work for the sprint. We've now integrated agents into our sprints, and we can assign the agent tickets. So here, Goose, you take these tickets this sprint, and because of MCP, Goose can read the tickets, everything that's going on, do the work, and then put up a PR in GitHub. So you see, you've just unlocked a workflow that you weren't going to get with your little CLI on like your computer or whatever. Now design can like assign Goose a ticket, or product can assign Goose a ticket that actually goes and does development work. And our developers are doing it too. The first time we did it, we ran out of tickets that sprint. Halfway through, we had to pull in more tickets because Goose was killing them. All right. Goose did 15 engineering days of work in the first sprint. Same thing with Slack. Now we're able to bring like Goose into Slack, also connect that to GitHub and our repos. And now we have developers just mid-conversation where you're like, oh, Ken, is this a bug? And Ken goes, I think so. I'm not sure. And Amanda says, hey, Goose, is this a bug? And then Goose is in Slack, starts looking at the code. Yep, here it is. Here's the thing. And say, okay, Goose, give me some possible solution. Goose say, here's 3 solutions with code snippets. Which one y'all like? Ken say, I like number 1. Amanda said, yeah, me too. I said, all right, Goose, go ahead, implement number 1. Now we got a PR, and this all happened in 5 minutes. There's no sprint, no meeting or any of that. So this is what MCP unlocks. Okay.
Goose is fantastic. I've been playing around with it pretty extensively recently. Have it reading my email and calendar from Google, and then weekly spits out like itineraries for me to follow up on and everything. It's like amazing. So I can't speak highly enough for that.
I do want to make it clear, this is also because of MCP. And everything I just said with Goose, you could do that with any of these other MCP clients as well. Again, the beauty of this.
That's great. The same question to you, Amanda. Anything that maybe you're seeing great use cases that Angie and Ken brought up, but anything for you specifically?
It's a little different kind of my focus. So I focus a lot on MCP, but I focus on kind of our customers. So I work with primarily enterprise customers that are working with GraphQL. And just last week, actually, we did a webinar with one of the engineers at Block, actually, and they needed to bring a bunch of endpoints into their graph, gRPC endpoints. And the way that they were able to do this was a combination of a multi-agent workflow in Goose, but not just Goose alone could not figure out how to bring these endpoints into the graph. They also needed the MCP tooling that we work on here at Apollo and we use to be able to translate, like, how do I make a GraphQL schema out of these gRPC endpoints? A really, really interesting talk. The engineer's name was Jonathan, and they also presented it at Summit. It's online if you want to check it out. But it was like a lot of the workflows that I help people with or help educate developers on are about kind of implementing these internal things that make you move faster. So I build little things for myself and my team, and they're not, but the really big impressive things that I get to see are more these kind of enterprise teams, just like slashing developer time and honestly just making developers happier. That was the coolest thing to me that Jonathan said about implementing all of this. Onboarding developers is easier now to the graph, which is complicated, and developers are happier with this workflow because migrating these endpoints is tedious work. It's not the fun part of development. So it's just really, really powerful in that way. And MCP was needed because asking an agent how to do that, you would get an answer, but the level of correctness is not high enough. And with a company, like Block, like you're dealing with finances, 80% good enough. That's not good enough. It needs to be better. And MCP allows you to get to that really, really close to that kind of workflow that you can truly depend on when it really matters.
I love that. You kind of touched on it here as far as like timing and efficiency and productivity with developers. We'll start with Angie on this one. What's one flaw or pain point in today's systems that you believe MCP is best positioned to kind of help solve? I think you had already touched on a few points, and Amanda brought up some as far as like developer onboarding and stuff like that too. So what else do you think it can do?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One is the fragmentation. Like, given any MCP server, it should be able to work in any MCP client with any large language model. Like, that's super powerful, right? We have people, everybody's building super fast right now in this space. Like, all of this agentic AI is like really new to us. It's from a mainstream perspective. And so everybody's building and they're in this race. What MCP has done is kind of set some rules, some standards in place. So yeah, be innovative, go as fast as you want, but here are the rules to adhere to. And that allows us as users to like still benefit from that. Yeah, fragmentation, I think, is the biggest one.
All right, Kent, same question over to you. We'll just keep kind of going around back and forth. I want to make sure everybody gets some input here.
Yeah, I actually don't really have too much to add to Angie. And honestly, this is one of the things that people who harp against MCP are missing, I think, is that like, we've been able to do tool calling for a long time. This is not a new thing. In fact, this is how MCP works, is using the tool calling that we've been able to do forever. What makes MCP powerful is the fact that it is a standard. And what's really surprising and wonderful is that all of the right players are playing the game, that they are actually implementing the standard. You look at OpenAI and what they've done with ChatGPT, they've got 800 million, maybe more now, months ago that they said this, 800 million weekly active users. That's like, I don't have that many users. That's so many users. Yeah. That's so wild. And they are so far ahead of everybody else, like so far ahead. I think, like, of course, Google, they had kind of their incumbent user base and all that, but like they had, like, I don't know what they were thinking when they decided, you know what, instead of going proprietary, we're just going to do the open standard thing. They had so many good reasons that you could say, oh, we're going to go the Apple model. We're going to do a proprietary thing. We're going to have our own app store. But instead they decided, no, we're going to go open. We're going to go with this open standard. And when they jumped on board, then it's like, okay, yeah, this is actually going to happen. Like, this is a real thing. And because it is a standard, you can write an MCP server and make your service interactable by any agent that implements that standard. And because all the right players are playing, you don't have to write your Claude version of the thing or your OpenAI version of the thing, even your Goose version of the thing. And it works with everybody. That, I think, is the biggest problem that MCP solves.
I honestly didn't even have a lot to add to that, because that was what Kent started to bring up was what I was thinking. I was like, this is all happening in the open. We're all building a standard together. Anybody can read it, follow along, contribute to it, ask questions as it's going. And that solves the pain point of everybody just building their own little thing in their own little silo and it just being a mess. And then you start to think about scaling, because a lot of people are still at that experimental phase. So what they're building, they don't even know if can scale. So as we start to have standards, then we can do this and figure out what that needs together. When you bring all those minds together, it's a really cool time to be in tech in general. And if you're passionate about this, you can be part of it.
I totally agree. I think there's so much more growth to happen. In this question, we'll go to Angie and then go around. Where have you seen the most growth in MCP as far as from a product perspective? And then what do you need to see in 2026 going into the next year? Where do you see it going?
I would probably say security and auth. Like, that was pretty underdeveloped on the initial launch of the protocol. The community was very vocal about that. And I think the maintainers of the protocol acted pretty swiftly to get things in place. So we're now able to use MCP at the enterprise level. Like I said, like, we have 12,000 employees, not just developers, everybody. Finance, design, the executive assistants, everybody is using MCP in our company, using agents. And so the security in the auth piece really helped us be able to adopt this internally. And then also, we build AI features for our products, for Square and for Cash App and things like that. And the auth and security, again, there being present has been a huge enabler for us to be able to do that.
I love that. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm very excited about MCP apps. In the last couple of talks that I've given, I take the ChatGPT apps demo, like their promo video that they made. It's like a minute and a half long. And I just literally watch this and I stand back and I just, please, will you understand or get into your mind what I have in my mind about what the future of user interaction is going to be like. This is a really great demonstration of what that's going to be. Like the last 3 years, we've been all like busy trying to add chatbots to our app. Well, OpenAI and MCP decided, you know what, let's just add the app to the chatbot and making it so that I can talk to any application and the response can be text if that's appropriate, or it can be a total graph user interface, something that I can interact with. There's a difference between, hey, could you add eggs to my shopping list? And like, sure, I can get a text response that says, yeah, I did that. Or I can say, hey, can you show me my shopping list? And okay, yeah, that makes sense. I want to see a visual thing. Or like, I've got a bunch of things to check off. Could you show it to me so I remember? Whatever. Like, I don't want text for that. And so being able to have this multimodal input that we've always talked about, that's great. But we also want multimodal output. And that's what MCP Apps enables. Another thing on the security side of things is secure transfer of information. So right now, you really shouldn't be putting your credit card or like social security number or anything like that into something that will send that to an MCP server. Even if you trust that MCP server, if it's going through some kind of proxy or something, sure, it's over HTTPS, but if you've got like an MCP gateway or something, there's no secure transfer of information in the spec. And we need to have something like that. So I think that would be really cool. And I've got like some nitpicky, smaller things like, come on, can we get some output schemas on sampling and different things like that would be really, really nice.
Go ahead, Amanda, and then we'll go into closing thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add here. I think and Kent alluded to some of the things I was thinking is I think we are already starting to see where things are going next. We've seen many industries start to get upended already, like traditional search and e-commerce, because now that you've got the MCP apps, there can be this vision of what that would look like. If companies now they can get their visual branding into this, like that's their salivating. Another place that I think will really end up going away, because this is kind of more what we're all doing already, and we've all kind of mentioned this, that work with developer teams, is all this internal, these crappy internal dashboards, internal tools that you've been forced to use at every job you ever join. I don't need those anymore. I can make useful things, personal stuff for me and my team. I don't need to use this crappy dashboard that probably doesn't do everything I want and makes me have to do a lot of manual reporting and everything like that. I think this ability to make these personal small team tools for literally anybody is going to like change the way we all work.
Yeah, to that point, we actually have developed a agentic operating system at Block where we have tiles, and each one of those tiles are little agents that are running. And so it's connected to all of our systems. So I'm not going to say any product names that actually suck, but we're all thinking them. And you don't have to go there anymore. You go to your agent, query whatever information you want, or tell it to like make any entries you want. And now you have like this one beautiful agentic interface for all of the tools.
I love that. All right. Thank you again to everybody. We'll do closing thoughts and then we'll wrap up. Angie, we'll let you go first. What do you want everybody in the audience to know going into 2026?
That MCP is for everybody, actually, not just developers. Like we are nerdy and we think about it from the technical details, but MCP should be an implementation detail that your users are not even exposed to. But given MCP, I would like for a developer to consider like not what it does for you, but what can you do for your customers? Like what can you open up for them given this technology?
I love what Angie said. My focus is mostly on consumer. I teach the things that I think I would need if I was still working at a consumer-based company like PayPal. I think PayPal really wants to be there. And guess what? They are there. They were like a really early implementer of MCP. And I think that whatever company you're working at, if you build internal tools, don't worry, like you can jump on the MCP train too. Like, in fact, it's even better if you're building for enterprise customers, if you're building for even a small team or anything like that, or of course, consumer. This is a huge, huge thing that engulfs everything. So that's why I pivoted so heavily over to it. I do still, of course, care about JavaScript, React, and all of testing and all that stuff. But I think that the user interaction model is changing and I want to be there to teach you all about it. So that's why I'm teaching on epicai.pro. Go take a look.
Thank you again to Angie and Kent. And then finally, closing thoughts, Amanda, and we'll get everybody out of here.
I love this. It's for everybody. And also just like go build. I think a lot of people are intimidated by the word server in MCP. don't think too hard about it. Just go build. It is for everybody. It is approachable, and just learn. And if you are interested in Chat GPT apps and MCP apps and all that in general, I will be in 2 weeks having a webinar on that with one of the engineers at Apollo and just kind of what we're doing there. So come join us and join our community of MCP building, and you can just talk to other developers and what they're doing. It's the best way to learn, honestly.
Thank you to my wonderful guests. We'll get them out of here. I hope you
Thank
guys
you.
have a great rest of your day.